Alrighty, hello everybody and welcome back to episode 2 of the complete PvP and Dojo Rematch build guide. So we are covering a whole bunch more Tems. It's going to be pretty much the same format as last time. I do have a couple things, like this is patch 1.8.2, so technically things could change, but these are builds meant to last throughout time, hopefully. As well as I'll mention a few options. In case anyone ever forgets or this is your first time watching the video, if you want to join PvP and don't have a team, do not worry. Under the competitive tab here, there is a button here for Showdown. And then under there, you'll probably see like 3 empty teams. You can click on them, and you can click on any empty slot, and you can add any Tem in the game. Give them any build you want and any stats you want, either ability, and you can do that all for free. It is part of the main Temtem base game, and you are a part of the same like ranked queue as other players using their normal teams. But most players who play PvP just use this because it's so nice and efficient. So would definitely recommend for anyone interested. And these are builds more geared towards PvP, but PvP guides or builds and Dojo Rematch guides are honestly the exact same. A good Dojo Rematch team is just a PvP team, basically. Alright, so let's get started. First up is Babawa. So there's a couple things you can do with Babawa. I would say, in general, a good Babawa spread reaches 90 stamina because you're always going to be running Water Cutting Lily, and 90 stamina here allows you to use 3 of those in a row. You could use the rest of the attacks are kind of flexible though. A very common thing is to run Toxic Slime and the item Schween's Horn to have good turn 1 damage. But Toxic Slime recently got nerfed, so it's less damage, and then also that takes up your item slot. So I've personally been enjoying Straw Shield as the item, which allows you to take even less damage from toxic hits, and then just run Aqua Stone as my main water damage. You also, if you don't need the support moves, you can definitely run like Ice Stalactite or Ice Cubes for like prio options, and even Laundry as well as your other move options. I would not recommend running Aquatic Whirlwind. You could run Harmful Lick if you are really afraid of toxics or like some natures, I suppose. But in general, I think you'll probably want Water Cutting Lily, Aqua Stone, and probably Drool, because Drool has 2 statuses. It's great for protecting against the Doom status. And you never know when you could use some heals. As far as the build goes, I like full HP, the rest in attack, and of course the stamina. There are other builds that max out the speed stat and the attack stat, and they just go to kill opponents as fast as possible. In general, it's called like a Nature Quaish team, and it's when you pair basically other Water Cutting Lily users with each other, and that's Nature Quaish, Mimit typically, and usually you throw a Mastodon on that team. It's typically seen as kind of a cheese strategy due to how weak it is to Toxic, but it still sees use, and it does see some success if you pair it with the right teams. Though you will get generally disliked, so I cannot recommend it. I would say if you're just throwing Babawa on any team that's not that, this is more the kind of spread you want to go, though. I would almost always go Mucus as the trait. The only time you wouldn't is if you're trying to do a Babawa on a stall team. But Babawa doesn't really perform very well on a stall team. It doesn't have ways to raise its defense. It's more of like a heal tank, and those just aren't very viable in this game. So I would always run Mucus whenever possible. Next up is Obi. So Obi has 2 traits that are very similar. One of them, Target Replicator, is if your ally gets a status, so something like a positive status, so it's like Evasion, Regenerating, Invigorized, then Obi also gets it. And the other one is if Obi gets a positive status effect, then the ally also gets it. So it's kind of the same but different. So there's a whole bunch of strategies you can do here, and Obi was the pinnacle of one specific strategy I used that won me a tournament, sadly before I started streaming, and have no record of it. But they both kind of, the builds are the exact same. You build a whole bunch of HP and speed. You could build max speed and fill HP. It's just there's nothing within the speed breakpoints that you're really missing out on, so I opt for more HP, typically. You could even run a little bit of damage. You don't need quite as much HP to survive everything. Obi does have good natural bulk, but it does also have a lot of weaknesses, and it is like a full support Tem. You are not meant to do damage with Obi, but sometimes it's good to get the chip damage when you're using Tesla Prison or Plasma Beam. Of which you'll probably want to run both pretty much all the time. The other moves are pretty flexible. Reset is one of the strongest moves in the game, though, only limited by its distribution. Not very many times have it, but if you're running Obi, it's a great chance to run it. The Force slot, I like to run Sparks if I'm running a Sparks team. If you're running Source Replicator, you absolutely want to run Bush, because this applies evasion at high prio on an already fast Tem. So it pretty much protects you and your ally for that turn, and it's super valuable. It's basically the main reason why you would run Source Replicator, is there's nothing else that really spreads. But I mean, other options, if you're running like Target Rep, is you can run Data Corruption. It's a pretty good move, it just has a higher hold. You could run Digi-Threat if you have a couple mentals and you're going for a Stall or Doom team. Otherwise, I wouldn't really recommend many of the other moves. Like, there's some niche support stuff, but in general, they're very hard to find the right time for. So I would go Sparks or like any of these three. You could even run Bush if you're running Target Replicator, just to have a way to protect yourself if needed, but typically that's less value. And for reference, if you're running Target Replicator, you want to probably run Morale Boosting Whip, because this will give Invigorated to your ally, which also gives it to Obi. And if you're running the other one, you want to run Fake Beard, because once again, you both get Invigorized that way. Now, I've also, instead of Morale Boosting Whip, I have run Refreshing Diabolo before. I personally like that one more, just because Obi stays on the field for a long time, especially with the Stamina Invest, where if it's not killed, it will pretty much just sit there and get value. And so it's easy to get the Diabolo off. So it just depends on how much support you want to have Obi do compared to like other utility. Alright, next up is Saku. Saku recently got nerfed pretty badly, where it used to have Boomerang, which it would run in this slot, and then instead of Turbine you'd run Narcoleptic. But since then it's kind of been in a weird spot, not having a good turn 1 and only having one good turn 2 for each type. So I would say that this is probably the optimal moveset right now, where it's more or less like a wind nuker, where with Turbine, and you have decent chip damage with Debris Typhoon and Air Specialist. But of course you can run either trait. Both traits are kind of horse apiece. You can also run Pedal Dagger if you run Botanist instead of Debris Typhoon. They're basically the same move. If you have a lot of winds, it might be worth it to use Debris Typhoon for the damage boost. I used to run this thing with a Tuvine and Tutsu in my wind melee core, and it was pretty fun that way. Other options are Narcoleptic, which gives you coverage options, and I mean that's pretty much it. I wouldn't fall for Nox Bomb. Typically, if you're clicking Nox Bomb, you would rather just be clicking like Turbine or Debris Typhoon instead. As far as the spread, it's just calced for Debris Typhoon, or like Lifeful Sap, Turbine, and Frond Whips. You always have a 3-turn rotation. And then it's just max HP and fill attack. Nothing super special. Saku's kind of just like, he's a happy ball, he's a tanky ball, he do damage, and he take hits. You could run, his item is pretty flexible. You could run Takma Mask for a better match against Toxics, Pan Sunscreen to not get burned if you're against fires, Energy Drink if you're running Narcoleptic. It likes not having to take statuses anyways, maybe even like Chamomile or Bait to prevent statuses and give you that immunity as well. Next up is Vash, which is the first one today with 2 builds. So this is kind of like the general special build, at least my variation of it. Fair warning that all of these builds are ones that I cooked up for the most part. Most of them I've tested, because I've played all Tems over time in so many different teams. but also there have been balance changes. Vash recently got Undermine and lost it within a patch. Instead, it got Double Edge, which is a low prio option. But this is more or less the Click Madness buff and Spam Crystal Spikes set. So it's able to do a lot of damage. The big combo here is that when you take the damage from Madness buff, you're able to heal it off with Scavenger by getting a knockout. So this means that Vash has a huge amount of HP sustain just by getting kills. The spread here is, it's 273 speed, which is my favorite breakpoint for faster Tems. The HP is enough to live something that I forgot, but I mean you should live just about anything with this HP. It's a big investment, so I wouldn't worry too much about dying in one hit, but you'll probably die in two if one of them is a 2x hit. So this stamina is like the minimum you have to reach in order to Crystal Spike 3 times, even with Sweatband. You could run a different stamina item like Bait or Fake Beard to try and get the Invigorized, but if somebody doesn't proc Bait, then that's a little sad. And also Fake Beard is usually a high priority option that most Tems will want to run on your team. Then it's just Fill Special Attack. There aren't a whole lot of other move options to swap into this build. You could swap out Double Edge if you don't want to click a low prio move, and then you can bring in Ninja Jutsu so you have at least something that can, an additional priority option, as well as something that can hit Crystal Resists. Though don't expect it to do that much damage without any attack investments. That's about the only thing I'd really run. You could run some defensive options like Quartz Shield or Block, but even with this HP investment, it's not going to help you survive very often. As far as the other build, this one I did throw Bait on, just because it's more like the bulkier Vash option. This is the Jack of all trades trait, as well as a physical set, because it does play quite a bit differently. So for here, I max out HP because what Jack of all trades does is it raises your special attack when you use a physical attack, and your physical attack when you use a special technique. So it's kind of backwards. So basically what happens is if you're going this trait, you're going to want to use Crystal Spikes as your way to raise your physical attack, and then use your high damage physical attacks after they've been boosted a couple times. This allows you to have priority turn 1 on a strong damage move, and then just build up for stronger nukes. Because even if you Crystal Spikes twice into a +2 Ninja Jutsu, that is super threatening. Problem is that requires you to survive at least 2 turns, and then the third one to not get outsped, which can be tough. For this one, I have you run a little bit slower, just to 232, which is the typical breakpoint, so you're able to invest more in HP, because the whole goal here is to survive multiple turns to stack your other damage raises. Like I said, typically your game plan is going to be to spam Crystal Spikes for the first couple turns and then let off some nukes, but don't be afraid to use an unboosted Major Slash. That'll still do tons of damage just because the move itself is strong and you have attack investment. Some other things you could swap around is you could run Sharp Stabs instead of Ninja Jutsu if you want some priority faster. You could run Base Jump as well if you just want a more immediate physical. I do recommend though, if you are running Jack of all trades, you're going to want to run attack investment and not a special attack build. If you're running special attack, you would be better off running this a similar scavenger build to the one I just showed you before. And then like I said, you're going to need a stamina item of some sort. It's just kind of one of the downsides of Vash. Next up is Owlhe. Owlhe's kind of weird. It's a Tem that's never really seen a lot of use since its release. One thing it really has going for it is it's probably the best melee nuker in the game with Bruiser Oshidashi. But that's about all it really has going for it. It's kind of at a weird speed tier where it can't definitively outspeed what it wants to, and it doesn't have great bulk. So I'd try and bring it up to the 273 breakpoint, but that's pretty hefty investment, and I give it enough defensive investment to help it survive. I think up to a T-Strike from Volgons, you should be able to live one hit from anything within reason. I do split it so it's special defense and HP because it has pretty lopsided defenses. If you don't have the special defense investment, it's super noticeable. As far as the like move options, Helicopter Kick with Bruiser just does a lot of damage. Feather Gatling, so you have a good turn 1 wind option if you need it. Turbine is your priority, and Oshidashi is your nuke. Do not... where is it? Yeah, do not fall into the trap of Telekinetic. It is... so, I always like to show new players this. So Telekinetic has a base damage of 80. Let's say you're using it on a Tem that has... or that's weak to mental, like a neutral type. So if you're using this against like a Tataru, it has effectively a base damage of 160, because that is 2 times. Now, if you were to just click Feather Gatling has a base damage of 150 just because of stab. So the only time you would ever want to click Telekinetic Shrapnel is if something resists both melee, or if something is weak to melee. Right now, if something is tripping over myself. If something is a melee type, so it resists my melee and it's weak to mental, and it also resists wind. So the only times that's useful are against Golzi, Tutsu, and another Owlhe. So it's really not running a single move to only have an advantage against 3 Tems that you probably don't want to be on the board against anyways. But you could run Perfect Jab if you want to run Owlhe more as a support option. Because both Barnshi and Owlhe share the same like baby Tem Towley, they do share some like support moves. So it's got like Intimidation and Turbo Choreography you could use. I wouldn't run like any of the mental moves here. Some people think, oh, cool, I can run like Beta Burst. No, same reason as Telekinetic, except you're using the wrong special attack stat. You could run Nito Seiho as well if you really want to go have like a secondary physical nuke. You don't need Feather Gatling. I'd say Feather Gatling's the one you probably drop. It's just nice to have that turn 1 threat to Toxics if needed. And then as far as item goes, I like War Drum just because it boosts damage. Owlhe doesn't have like a specific item. You could run Bait on it because Owlhe is kind of weak to all the statuses, doesn't have any status immunities. Oh, and then trait, you could run Sentinel. There's nothing wrong with Sentinel. The biggest issue is that the Tems that normally sleep are Mentals, and Owlhe's weak to Mental. Plain and simple. That's kind of the issue. But it could be a niche need for your team. Who knows? So next up is Barnshi. So Barnshi's kind of weird. It's always really needed a stamina item, and yet the item it actually wants to run is Straw Shield, so it's not weak to electrics. I would recommend running Fake Beard though, because that's gonna open up your attack options way more. And then the other thing that Barnshi really wants to do is Time Split. So basically Barnshi is Time Split. Ventil also does Time Split, but like this move is so strong, and it's just on 2 really bad Tems. That's how it's balanced. So you can do a lot of damage with Hypoxia turn 1, and even more if you click Gamma Burst. But the real thing is to just survive a couple turns. That's why I have like mediocre speed, decent HP investment, and high special attack, is because you probably want to bring Barnshi on a board where it resists, preferably against special attackers, because Barnshi has solid special defense actually, and then get a Time Split off on something swapping in. So it's really good against stuff like Volphy, because Volphy like 3 or 4 shots this thing with Plague. It just does like no damage. And then like Tornado is just your priority option. I would always go with Neutrality. Air Specialist doesn't offer enough value to justify running it. Neutrality allows you to not get exhausted by something like Volphy and lose your Fake Beard, but you also don't get burned or toxic or even doomed, so it's a very valuable trait. The stamina is just to reach 61 with Fake Beard. Even with a stamina item, you still want to reach 61 on pretty much all Tems, just because that's one of your stamina breakpoints. And like it says, just the speed breakpoint, max special attack, and the HP is filled, but you can live most special attacks this way, just not like a Thunderstrike. As far as replacement options, you could run Bamboozle to try and buy a turn. Typically, if you did that, you'd want to start off with a higher speed. Same thing with like Intimidation and Turbo Choreography as well. And then there's like energy manipulation if you really want a, or even phantom whiplash. That's probably the better option if you want a mental high prio move. Barnchi has so many good moves. It has like every move it could ever want. But because its typing is so bad and its stats kind of suck, it's just never really seen the light of day much. But if you do want to run it, I'd suggest doing something like this. Next up is Galis. Galis has been a threat for longer than most Tems. It's kind of fallen off in recent times, but it was strong for a long period of time. So most Galis movesets are going to look like this. The only difference could be Glass Blade instead of Double Gash. And that's really the only one I'd recommend. I wouldn't recommend Major Slash or Ninja Jutsu, no matter how tempting they may look, as high damage options. You're not getting the stab boost on those, so it's not going to be as good as you think it is. And for goodness sakes, don't run Crystal Spikes. I've seen it before. Please do not. You have 99 special attack. It's one of the worst special attacks in the game. And it's just not going to do anything. Earthwave is also kind of tempting, but I've tried to make this work so many times and it just doesn't. So it's pretty much going to be these 4 moves, maybe Glass Blade. Glass Blade Slingshot as an item sometimes is what people are running. I like Double Gash more personally. As far as the moves or the TVs here, I'd like to reach 263 speed because this allows you to outspeed max speed Volphy. So you can threaten it with a hook kick or double gash before you get hit with a Dust Vortex. So I think that's relevant enough to invest speed, and it's pretty low investment because Galis is like tied for the second fastest Tem in the game. Then I just like to max HP and throw the rest in attack. Once again, reaching that 61 stamina break point anyways. The traits doesn't really matter. Both are very strong. I tend to go towards mirroring, but if you do go resistant, you don't need to run bait, and you can run enough different items, something like War Drum, First Aid Kit, even Nutrition Bar. But mirroring, you're definitely going to want probably bait as your item. And last for this team is Mix. So Mix only really has one trait. I don't think it's probably one of the most lopsided pick traits in the entire game, where like 99% of people are picking Puppet Master, and the 1% that pick Rejuvenate are just people who are thinking, but what if you could do this? Puppet Master makes it so that while you're below 45% health, you cannot click on Mix to target it. You have to kill it with a spread attack, or kill its ally first, and then use your second attack to kill Mix. This makes Mix very hard to kill, but it has to get below that 45% first. So historically there have been some different ways to do that. Some people run a lot of speed and then hit themselves with Crystal Spikes, because you can actually self-target with Crystal Spikes, and this knocks you into range of Puppet Master if you calc it correctly. But it's not uncommon for people to run spread moves right now, so I wouldn't recommend that. I prefer running a HP investment and a slow mix. Maybe a bit controversial, but with this much HP investment, you can live a Crystal Plume Gatling from Chimerian, which is like the strongest thing you're going to get hit by turn 1, and most people are going to think, oh wow, I can kill this. And you'll actually survive on like 1 health, and it's just in range for Puppet Master, and it's perfect. But you could run less HP and more speed. I would at least make sure you have enough HP to survive a Crystal Plume Gatling from Tuvine, and that also should let you survive things like Lava Waves from Hazoret. But basically, you want your Mix to take 1 super effective hit, so it falls into Puppet Master range. You want people to hit your Mix 1 time. A lot of, like a smart player will hit it with a weaker priority move first to get through that small health cushion you have for after you take the hit. So it kind of depends, but if you actually intentionally swap your Mix into a hit, your opponent won't always know it's coming. It's just a very strange playstyle. But anyways, as far as like the rest of the build is stamina for a 3-turn rotation with Crystal Spikes, max special attack, and the rest in speed. You don't really need speed on Mix. I don't think it can be nice, because it depends on what you're pairing Mix with. If you have really tanky allies and you're just more or less having a stall team, while Mix builds up its offenses and melts through the opponents, then I would say that you don't need speed. If you have a faster team, and you're just kind of having Mix because you like the Tem, you probably want to take some out of HP or special attack and put it into speed so that you can match the pace of your team. But even max speed Mix isn't as fast as you probably would think it would be. As far as its moves, energy manipulation is just your cheap priority option. You don't feel like you need to put it next to a nature ally, but it is nice. Crystal Spikes is your main damage option, but you can't spam it just due to its high stamina cost. Phantom Whiplash is your even higher damage at lower cost, but it's on a high hold. And then Refresh is the big kicker here, because this one raises your special attack by 2 stages, but it's on low prio. So normally Tems can't hit this, or can't click this move because you're vulnerable, but Mix can avoid that with its trait. So once it gets into or below range, you can click refresh a few times. Just, you have to be really careful, because it does heal you 10% when you click this move, and you can actually heal outside of your Puppet Master range, and your opponents can take advantage of that. As far as other options to run, you could run Denigrate. Usually, like, you're going to get rid of Energy Manip, if anything. It's just, this is your nice cheap move to finish off somebody that lives. Psy Surge and Denigrate are both kind of your main options, just for higher damage, cheap options. You could run Hallucination if you really want to be funny, though. That's really about it. Oh, and then the item. Refreshing Diabolo is pretty easy to proc, and it also helps your tanky allies survive, so that's usually what I recommend. But if your Sweatband is open, it can also help Mix to continue outputting damage longer, so I would also recommend that. And here's the code for that, if anyone wanted to. I realized while making these teams that getting the codes isn't actually that useful. But anyways, on to no, this is the other Vash. This is Raican now. So Raican has 2 pretty different traits. One of them is like your full-on offense, trying to get kills as fast as possible, and the other one is your stamina support. Now, being a stamina support like this is pretty unique. Cooperation is the only thing that really functions similarly. Or I guess like Fake Beard, Source Rep, Obi. But in general, you're probably going to want to run Prideful. But it's not like Motivator is bad. It's just, if you're running Motivator, you're going to run like King's Roar to lower stats. And probably Embers to like lower damage with burns. It's just, Raican doesn't have the kit it really wants from Motivator. And if you're running a support member of the Raican line, you're probably running Raise. Just sounds silly, but people do it. As far as Prideful, so the important thing here is you actually need to get kills in order to get stronger. So I like to invest maximum attack. The speed break point is so that you, after you get 1 kill and gain the speed boost, you'll be at 232, which is the main break point. Stamina is just for a 3-turn rotation with Quetzal, Meteor, and Quetzal. The HP is just fill, because Raican has a lot, like, great defenses already and it's good HP pool. Moveset, you're mainly going to be clicking these 2 moves, but if your opponent has like an Earth type that you can't hit, Head Charge is good to use. It just recently got that. If you have Synergy, it's also nice to gain the defense boost and make your Raican even bulkier. Held Anger is mainly for like hitting other fires or a water if you need to. After, like, in the late game and you have like 2 stacks of Prideful, it does really good damage. I wouldn't really swap anything out. You could technically run Embers instead of either of these if you just want a cheap damage option. Stampede never really gets value. Execution, I mean, technically you could run it, but you're never going to one-shot something with Execution, so it's hard to justify. You also have to, you can't, Execution looks like such a cool move, and it's so fun to use, but they give it too high of hold to balance it, that you just never get to click it. Alright, next up is my boy Piraniant. Alright, so Piraniant, this is not, like, so these are the TVs I run on pretty much all my Piraniants. So this speed break point helps you outspeed base speed Volarend, so you're not going to be doing a lot of damage to Volarend. But if you end up in a situation where you have to, you can Cold Geyser it twice, Second turn it'll freeze, you'll be faster, and then third turn you can Abyssal Maw. So if you've already got it chipped down a little bit, it can be enough to win you a game. But also, Piraniant just likes having some speed to outspeed things. It's also one of the best attempts to use Humiliating Slap with Synergy, because it counters both Earth and Fire, which crystals are weak to. So I love pairing this thing with mainly Tuvine, but it also works with other physical crystals, things like Anatan and Chimerian. I don't have like the title of some of my videos where I've used it before, but I have used this in quite a few teams. Now, as far as other move options, I like Head Charge over Noxious Bomb, just because it allows you to do 2 times damage to Volphy. You can gain a defense boost, which you like to do. You're usually already pairing with crystals for Humiliating Slap. It also lets you hit Chimerian stronger. You could also run Ice Cubes if you want a priority option, though usually, like, it's so niche that you probably aren't going to get value from it very often. Laundry's also a priority option if wanted. And the trait, I always like Energy Reserves. It's a crazy good trait. The only counterplay to Piraniant is actually to ignore it. Either you have type advantage against it or you ignore it. Because what Piraniant, if it never gets Energy Reserves, will kind of just do mediocre damage. But if it does get the attack boost, all of a sudden it's dealing 2x damage to everything. And it's at this much HP allows it to survive like a Thunder Strike from Volgon. So you can probably one-shot a Volgon or get darn close with Cold Geyser. You can also survive like a Volphy Plague, and +4 Head Charge would kill like almost any Volphy. So it's just things like that. Patient is the stall build. I debated on including like a secondary build of it over there, but I've never found a good way to run it, and most stall builds I honestly have seen run Energy Reserves just because it allows you to kind of be a late game offensive threat. If you do want to run a stall Piraniant, I would probably replace Nox Bomb and Humiliating Slap with Revitalize and Beef Up. And I would probably switch the attack and the HP, and then put the speed and special defense. And today you have a stall Piraniant. I mean, that's just a guess. It's just figured I'd leave it there in case anyone wants to try. And then, I mean, I didn't touch on it. Abyssal Maw is Piraniant's signature move, and I would say this is the strongest move in the entire game. It's got good base damage. If it kills, it has an execute of 30%, and if it kills something, you gain 30% health back. It's also, like, reasonably cost. So, and I was using Piraniant before this. So I think Piraniant is very good. It's only held back by there being, like, a fairly toxic-based meta, as well as there not being a lot of crystals to pair it with. Maybe if Volarend ever gets a nerf, then Piraniant can shine a little bit more. Oh, and then the First Aid Kit is always like the best item because it pairs so well with Energy Reserves. I really wouldn't run anything else. You could maybe run like Nutrition Bar on a stall set, but I just run First Aid Kit, okay? Alright, next up is Scaravolt. The build with Scaravolt is very simple. You want to maximize your HP, have enough stamina for 3-turn rotation, and fill the rest in special attack. And that's for either trait. Both traits play pretty similarly, despite doing completely different things. But if you're doing Good Friend, it's more of a tanky or support Scaravolt. If you're doing half full, then all of a sudden Scaravolt's your carry. The biggest difference between the two traits is, are you running Baton Pass or not? Because if you're running full, you're going to run Baton Pass as your item. That's just, you're going to. If you're running Good Friend, it doesn't really matter. I like Double Screen more just because it's good general value. I wouldn't recommend running Straw Shield. Normally if you're running Straw Shield on something, it's because it can still hit the things that it's weak to. Not always the case, but normally it is. As far as the moveset, Thunder Strike, Electric Storm, and Fire Tornado are going to be your bread and butter. You're going to want these on no matter what set you do. If you do go half full, though, you could change Cheer Up for Embers or Meteor Swarms. You have some more immediate fire damage. I I kind of like Cheer Up though, even on Good Friend, just because you can turn 1, use it on yourself, gain +1 special attack, and then use Fire and Tornado. And then that turns you into more of an offensive threat because Scaravolt's base special attack is relatively low. They really tried to make Scaravolt like a physical attacker with half full, but it's just not. Its best physical electric attack is Defibrillate, not including Earthbreaker synergy, which is just not worth it. And Embers and Meteor Swarm are its fire attacks. It's just very weak. It's fun. It's a fun gimmick to try. I wouldn't recommend it. Shelter and Toughen are hard to get value out of as well. So I mean, Good Friend Scaravolt doesn't really have a good 4th move. You could run some other goofy stuff like Burrow if you really want. But I'd recommend just running Cheer Up and using it just in case you'll need Fire Tornado. And it also raises your special attack now as of recently. So I would say that is Scaravolt's now best 4th move. Alright, next up is Hedgine. Hedgine's kind of fallen off. He used to really dominate, and pretty much any super fast team you'd see would run a Hedgine. Nowadays, though, Gotta Go Fast only gives high prio to everything other than its digital moves, basically. So, Hedgine is still a fast threat, and if you're running it, you're going to want it run at max speed, mainly so that it wins the Golzy matchup, or at least has potential to. This HP, I forget what this is for. I just made these spreads like half an hour ago, but I made so many I forget. My guess, I think it was for living up to a Grumper Thunderstrike. So that'll let you survive most 2x hits, but not all. Like, I don't think you can live a Stone Ball, but you can probably live a Rockfall and stuff. And stamina is just, you know, you're running Sweatband on it, so you have to reach this breakpoint, but this should give you a 3-turn rotation. If you can use harmful synergy, you actually save some stamina that way as well. Most of the time, if you're running Hedgine now, you're going to be running it on a Hellfire team with a couple other fires. Hellfire is one of the stronger moves in the game because it's 100 spread damage and it burns at high prio. But of course, Hedgine can get prio on it with just Gotta Go Fast as is. As far as like move substitution options, Zen Meditation is definitely the one you'd swap out. You get high prio on it with Gotta Go Fast, but the thing is, Hedgine is meant to be a damage dealer, not really a support. But if Hedgine gets 2 good turns of damage and is on its last legs, you can use it as just kind of a last-ditch effort, or as a good time if you bring Hedgine in and your opponents are swapping, then you can get a great boost for your team. But I mean, Plasma Beam's the only other move you'd really even consider, just to have some more burn support instead of harmful microwaves. But I'd say you probably want harmful more often than not, especially since you're already playing with other fires to get Hellfire synergy, so you already get the fire synergy with microwaves. Yeah. Now, Hedgine's other trait is like super weird. It's a whole other play style, and nobody really uses it. I wouldn't even really know how to describe how to use it. Basically, when Hedgine dies, it gives its stat changes to the ally. So I mean, Hedgine has a lot of stat boosting moves, things like Hook, Charcoal Wall, Overclock, Zen Meditation, even like Footwork. Nobody don't use Footwork. But this is a really weird TV set I stole from a friend of mine from... I checked and it was like 2.5 years ago. Nothing's changed on it since then. I've never used it. But if anyone wants to try and give this trait a try, I figured I'd at least drop a spread. So, wouldn't recommend it. It's really bad. But some of you want to have a little bit of fun, I'm sure. You basically use Hook to gain attack boost, so you have something to pass on to an ally. Charcoal Wall with high prio and this special defense investment means you can actually live quite a bit. I don't know what all these little things are calced for. He calced them all for a reason. I just don't remember what they are. The only one I do know is that this attack, after you get the +2 attack damage from Hook, you can actually use Cyber Claw on yourself and die. So that's kind of, because most of the time if people see a going away gift Hedgine, they're not going to attack it, and they're going to wait for you to die yourself. So when you Cyberclaw yourself, it's up to you to pass on your buffs. And it also means that you can actually give your ally boosts on tempo. So if you want to give your ally the +2 attack boost that turn, just knock yourself out. Plasma Beam, I think, is just there for some chip damage and a burn, just in case. But yeah, like I said, not sure. It's a weird build. It's not mine either, so I can't even explain it real well. So we're just gonna move on. Oh, I guess for the item, I don't know what item the thing runs with that build either, because it's meant to die. I just put Mom's Lunch, because then that kind of hits the allies or the enemies where it hurts, lowering their stamina, and might give you an extra turn or two to build up. So next up is Osakai. I do cover the Sensei build here, because I think the Sensei build is way better than Body Stretch. Not that Body Stretch is bad, it's just that it's kind of weird, where if you're running just a physical Osakai in general, you have to run Body Stretch, just you can hit correctly. And if it doesn't have a lot of great stall moves. It's got Toughen and it's got 5 PPH. That's about it though. So I'm just gonna kind of ignore that, because it's really niche and I only know like one person who actively runs it, and even they're not running it right now. But Sensei's pretty cool, because it allows you to use Hook and actually deal decent, like you can scale offensively while using Hook. And you also get to use the huge nukes of Dust Vortex and Inner Spirit while gaining that attack boost. So the biggest problem with Osakai is surviving and outspeeding, because it's pretty tanky. And this build is meant to, it's got high HP and I've got Reactivile on it. So the goal is to survive long enough to get a couple hooks off and then just nuke some stuff. Problem is, most Osakais, whenever they're played, need some sort of speed control allies. So it's played really well on turbo choreography teams. You can even use Quicksand and try and do some stuff, but then you're not scaling, so it's questionable. So, but normally if you're playing a turbo choreography team, Osakai is a pretty good addition if you have the type match for it. The build, like I said, just max HP. The speed is just to reach 221, just so you have a point you can reach. Oshiara is so prevalent, it's pretty relevant to hit that point, so you can at least hook before it. Like if an Oshiara was to survive on like 15-20%, you can just hook, gain +2 attack, and finish it off. Usually that's how you want to bring Osakai into the field anyways, is get an opposing Tem low, and then use Hook to finish it off, gain the attack boost, and then do something bigger next turn. I'd have a little bit lower attack investment, but that's just because Osakai scales so well with Hook. You could try more attack investment, but you really want the bulk and the speed as much as you possibly can. And then the stamina is just for a 3-turn rotation here. The fourth move option, there are a couple things. Petrify is a very strong move, but it's also low prio and 2 hold. Not something Osakai wants to do when it wants to outspeed its opponents typically. So other options would include Dim Mak for a prio, like a set damage option. Kind of niche, but you know, 130 damage is 130 damage. Jinx Whisper, if you just want to buy an extra turn and you outspeed, maybe for holds, it's definitely valuable. Quicksand, like I said, for like if you gotta do a speed control yourself, sometimes it's viable. Then there's also, it sounds strange, but Rockfall is something that's commonly been run, and it's been my 4th slot on Osakai for a long time. And while it goes against the trait, the only reason you would ever click Rockfall is when the opponent has Tyrannac on the field, because Tyrannac blocks abilities, and that would mean that Osakai cannot actually deal like any damage because it has all special attacks and its trait isn't activated. So running Rockfall allows you in that specific situation to be able to still deal damage. This is not in my playlist. So that's why I would potentially consider that, but it's running a move for one specific Tem in the game, not always viable, but worth mentioning. Next up is Saipat. So Saipat, if you've watched some of my recent videos, I've been running Saipat on a sort of freeze team. And that's kind of another build I've covered in there, but this is the general Saipat build. I like to run 97 HP. I think this is enough to live like a Matter Teleport from Sanby. Maybe even a Turbo Attack from Molgu, I'm not sure. But either way, it allows you to really live one hit, so you don't have to be afraid of dying to like a Plague on Vol if you turn 1. I think you can even live a Thunderstrike from Volgon as well. The speed is to make sure you always outspeed Hedgine. It matters less now because Hedgine's not as popular, but it's still very nice, and you outspeed Volgons this way, so you can hit them with a hard-hitting Nox Bomb. Stamina is pretty low. Luckily, Saipat has pretty cheap moves, so it doesn't need a high stamina investment, and then the rest is an attack. You want as much attack as you can get, but all these other things are more important, so it's just filling the rest in attack. Both traits are completely viable. Shinobi Tactics is like guaranteed value, but Amphibian poses such a threat that it makes Tems like Oshiara have to swap out, and if you pivot into a water move, it can be really valuable as well. As far as other move options, the move you would swap out is Nito Seiho. I just included so you have a secondary melee option, but I like running Toxic Ink personally because that allows you a way to apply Toxic Ticks in a way to, like, against stall your teams. You're still dealing pretty hard-hitting damage while also poisoning them for 25% true damage. That's really the only other one I'd recommend. I wouldn't recommend Ninjutsu. You could arguably do Water Jet just in case you face somebody that cancels out your item with Seized. This would really only happen if you're facing a Golzi with Diffuser, but potentially it could happen. You could also technically set up a... You would apply 2 turns of Cold with Water Jet, and then you could apply the second turn with Ice Shuriken, so it could buy you a free turn. But yeah, wouldn't really recommend it. Schween's Horn has to be the item you run here, specifically for Nox Bomb. If you're not running Schween's Horn, you're going to be wanting to use my Freeze Saipat build, and that requires a lot of specific team setup. So I wouldn't recommend it. But this Saipat build can be thrown on any team, and it has been for a number of patches, and it's proven successful. And next up is Drakash. So Drakash isn't a Tem I play very often. I know that there's a few real Drakash fans out there that would probably tell me that I'm wrong. But here's my shot. So I reached the 273 breakpoint as per usual. It's enough stamina for a 3-turn rotation. This HP is... I think this one I calced enough so it can live a Stone Ball. It was either that or... No, I think I definitely have... I think that's what it's for. And then the rest is special attack. So Drakash can actually live quite a few things with Fiery Soul, especially neutral hits. They kind of overloaded this thing's stats in my opinion, just because its typing is one of the worst. But so it's kind of like Barnshee in that it can live a lot of like 1x special hits. Things like a Plague from Volphy, or... I guess there's not a whole lot of things, like a Beta Burst. And... But other than that, it's just kind of meant to be like a burn support. It's another Hellfire user. You play with Temtem probably, or Hedgine probably, or other fires. Like you can also utilize its synergy with Superconductivity Volgon, so that you're not stacking fire weaknesses, and you can actually counter your water weakness as well. Dust Vortex and Mud Shower are my preferred moves, but Sandstorm is an option, Fire Tornado is an option. I would say Mud Shower is probably the flex slot here. As far as traits go, both traits are very good. I think Heat Discharge is just too much value to pass up nowadays, but Sentinel is always a good trait. It's just very situational, depending on what your team needs. If you're running a slow team and Drakash is playing more of a cleaner role on your team, then Sentinel could definitely be better in that situation. For the item, I have Straw Shield on it. I know I said earlier that running Straw Shield on a Tem that can't actually do anything against the type it's weak to isn't always great. But I think just due to the whole option of having burns, I think it can be valuable. There's also if you're switching items though, you could probably run Iron Coating as your main option. Just so your Earth moves do more damage, or Fire Chip as well. Just depends on what you want. Alright. Running a little bit slower than last time, but I've got one less Tem, so just keep going. Next up is Tortenite. So Tortenite lost Rotten Goo, then the next patch gained Hallucination, but then the patch after that, Hallucination got nerfed. So Tortenite's been jumping around a lot. But it's still a move you're going to want to run, because it's your turn 1 Toxic option, and you're also already wanting your Tortenite to be next to Mentals for Crystal Deluge. If you're not having Mentals on your team, you probably don't want Tortenite. Or if you do have Tortenite, it's going to be a Stall Tem. But I wouldn't recommend running Stall Tortenite, personally. It's very situational and kind of hard to use. But as far as this Tortenite build, it's basically just offensive, deal as much damage as possible. So you just spam Crystal Spikes for Hallucination as needed. Toxic Gas is just if you don't have Synergy for Hallucination. It's really the only offensive special Toxic option it has. And Deluge, you only want to click this when you have Synergy for Sleep. But when you do, it's pretty valuable. As far as the build goes, on pretty much all my Crystal Spikers, I like to hit 200 speed. Mix is a special exception, because you want to outspeed Golzy, basically. Because then you can 2x Golzy with Crystal Spikes, and you won't die to 1 uppercut, and you can kill Golzy before it's able to use Oshidashi. That's the big reason for this speed. But it's also good because you can get Crystal Deluge value as well as Hallucination value with the fast status effects. Because of Efficient being a crazy good trait, Tortenite's able to get away with little to no stamina. 61 it allows you to click Crystal Spikes 3 times, which is rotation of 3 anywhere. Then I just max special attack and rest in HP. Tortenite's crazy bulky. Pretty darn close to Zenith bulk. I think it might even be better bulk, honestly. And so it gets a ton of value out of HP, and then it's just able to dish out damage. As far as swapping out moves, Toxic Gas is... Actually, I don't even know. It's probably... It's tough to swap out moves, because you want every single one of these. If you have enough Mentals, you could probably swap out Toxic Gas. And the only other move you'd really want to swap in is Tortenite's Garden. And this is only if you really struggle against Stall. Because Tortenite doesn't have any offensive scaling options, but it does have defensive scaling options. No, it doesn't matter though. It just, because it doesn't have any offensive scaling options, sometimes you just need something that can break through a wall. And that's what Tortenite's Garden allows you to do. It's a Doom option. If you were to run a Stall set, you would probably run zero offense, max HP, get rid of the speed, throw defense and special defense split. You probably want a lot more stamina. You'd run Confined, Cage, Quartz Shield, Tortenite's Garden, and Crystal Spikes. Actually, probably Toxic Gas is your offensive move because of the Toxic Ticks. But the goal with that team is to... You want Tortenite to swap into a board where your opponents cannot hit it. Because you can permanently trap them with Cage. So if your opponent has like a Nidorstil and a Platamus on the board, swap Tortenite in, all of a sudden they'll never be able to do anything. Your Tortenite gets +8/+8, meaning both defenses get maxed out, and then you can just doom them both, and there's absolutely nothing they can do. However, that's kind of hard to get that specific situation, and if your opponents are able to overexert themselves and knock themselves out before then, sometimes they can save the game, but usually it's too late by then. And then items, I always like marbles. If you're running a stall one, usually you would go with Nutrition Bar. Reactive Vial is another option, just because Tortenite has a lot of weaknesses. No, it's already used somewhere else. But yeah, Reactive Vial is another option if you want it. You could invest a little bit more HP and take some out of special attack. I realized I probably should have calced for like a Whiplump Tornado or something. But somebody else could use Temtem and do that if you feel like your Tortenite's a little bit too squishy. Anyways, next up is Inky. So I only cover one Inky. I do Spec Master because that's the one that's easier to use and generally seen as better. But both Inky sets are pretty much the same. If you're running Fizz Master, you pretty much just put the special attack and physical attack. 1 HP, 4... You might want to need a little bit more stamina on Fizzmaster. If you want to see a good Fizzmaster build, I do have it. Once again, it's the freeze team I've been running. Has one. But yeah, so basically Inky is just a glass cannon. Thunderstrike does tons of damage with Specmaster. Quartz Dirt's really, you just bring it because it's the only crystal option you have on special attack. Bright Beam is to buy you an extra turn with Evade, and it doesn't really have a good fourth move. I threw Tesla Prison on here because it can be good to punish swaps. If somebody's trying to get something in to kill Inky, like maybe a Saipat trying to get Nicho Sai up, you can, I guess you could one-shot it with Thunderstrike. It's hard. It doesn't have any good fourth moves. You could run Refresh, so if somebody swaps, you can gain some special attack. But for the most part, I figured it's just easier to have a rare potential damage drop or speed drop option. I guess the reason you'd really use this is if there's some Tem that you can't one-shot and is faster than your ally Tem, you could slow them down, deal some chip damage to it, and allow your ally Tem to outspeed and finish them off. That's about it. You could run Chain Lightning as well, but if your Inky's out of position, you'll end up hitting your ally for pretty big damage. But I've seen some fun stuff with like Slingshot, Chain Lightning, Inky. As far as your moveset, if you're running physical Inky, it's going to be Sparkling Bullet, Sharp Stabs, Paizo, and Mineral Hail. Once again, really, those are just going to be the 4 moves that you run. If you're running physical, you could run Taser or Slingshot, either one. Special, I would always recommend Pan Sunscreen, because it allows you to have a better matchup into the Fiery Soul users. It also allows you to like not die to a Hazrat, Lava Wave, and stuff like that. So it's just a good defensive item. Alright, next up is Shaolant. Another Tem with 2 pretty distinct playstyles based on its trait. I'm covering the Welcomer one here because I think that's the one that is more flexible and you can actually throw on more teams. I also think it's... I like Shaolant as a Tem, but it's kind of difficult to use. It's got really low base stats, really low HP, really low special attack, even though it's got solid defenses and mediocre speed. The big reasons why you would run Shaolant is for Kesugatame. It's probably the best user of this move. It really can flip a game in your favor, and then also it has like support with Haitouchi. So you deal a bit of chip damage with Soul Shout, put your opponent to sleep, get Kesugatame off hold, and you allow your ally to just do whatever. I mean, this Shaolant support or build is a support build. You can kind of, as you swap around, get some health back, but I wouldn't play around this too much unless you're pairing specifically with half-full Scaravolt. Then they do have some special synergy. My 4th move option I just have is Inner Spirit to actually deal some damage, because even though Inner Spirit has a high base damage, once again, look at Shaolant's special attack stat, and this is after some investment. Like it's so bad. As far as like move substitution options, like if you don't want Inner Spirit for damage, you can run Cooperation for some stamina and HP. Composure if you're afraid of stall teams. Cheer Up even allows you to like support allies better. Dimbok for true damage. Undermine for special attack drops. Double Edge is like a little too niche for my taste on Shaolant, but Zen Meditation is probably its 2nd best move option if you're not running Inner Spirit. Because it's easy to buy a 2nd turn with Haitouchi, and then the 3rd turn you can just use Zen Meditation. Though it is low prio, so it can be a little tough to get the value out of it. If you're running Bruiser, you would probably just go full offense and take it out of HP or special attack. Technically, you could run the same build with Bruiser, but because of if you have low special attack investment, you're getting lower value out of it. And I mean, you could run a slower Shaolant. The whole reason I run it at this speed is because at this speed breakpoint, there are exactly 4 Tems speed tied. There is Shaolant, Inky, Owlhe, and Barnshi. And the only one relevant there is Inky. But being able to speed tie Inky and threaten a one-shot on it with Soul Shout is good enough to be worth it, I'd say. And I do run Sensei Robe just to do a little bit more damage. You could run some other stuff, like Refreshing Diabolo is a good support option. I think that's really the main one that I run for supports. Morale boosting whip has seen some use in the past as well. Yeah, those are really the only options I'd pick. And next up is Cyrox. So Cyrox recently got neurotoxins reworked. Water synthesizer is just, you can use it. It's not a bad trait. It's just not going to see use very often. The amount of times the water synthesizer is going to win you a game is going to be probably 1 in 100. But you know, that's 1 in 100 games. Neurotoxins just gets you more consistent value throughout a game, especially with toxic gas. So it's a very simplistic set. It's in the max special attack, stamina just for 3-turn rotation, and max HP. I also give it reactive vial. It's got other item options, but it's got a lot of weaknesses and it's bulky enough to take some hits, so I like reactive vial. Moveset's pretty standard. There's really nothing you'd want to swap in here. If you go with tankier Cyrox, you could go Paralyzing Poison or like Digi-Threat. Could even go like Zen Meditation, but I think in general you're always going to just want these 4 moves. Cyrox is really like he's a damage carry for a Venom Spread team. Basically like having a second Toxic Chromion, because Toxic Chromion is going to be your main damage. Acronox is going to be your most consistent, and Cyrox is going to be kind of like a backup for both. One of the best pairs for Cyrox is Hazrat, because Hazrat, if it uses Wastewater, you can Venom Spread off that, as well as gain the defense drops, and you also gain synergy with Microwaves, so it's good to run with Cyrox. Also you get like synergy with V-Gust if you're on a water type, so it's got a lot of good things it can do. It's just, I feel like it's hard to really get good enough value to justify, but it's a fun little guy to run, especially on Venom Spread teams. Yeah, I can't think of any other item you'd really want on it either. Next up is Pocus. Pocus is very weird. It was really OP for like one patch when it got time split. That move I was saying is only on Barnshee and Vental now. And since then it's been pretty bad. The real niche it has left is with slowdown on a mental core. So most mental cores will run a Pocus just because slowdown. Slowdown is just a crazy good move because it lowers an opponent's speed as well as puts them asleep. And Pocus is super fast, so you can max out his speed and outspeed most things in the game. And one item option is actually to run Fat Burner, and this allows you to outspeed everything except Amphitheater when using a 2 prio move. So, but that does lower your attack. It's just an announcement to all. Do not run this item on anyone that's not a dedicated support. But it can help in niche situations. I wouldn't recommend it. I would just go double screen. Help you stay alive a little bit longer, because you're not able to invest a whole lot of bulk when you're investing so much in speed. So the main thing here is just to put your opponents to sleep with slowdown, especially the ones that can deal with you super effectively, and just let your ally do whatever it wants. It's usually played with something like Lawaddle to just buy turns to get off of penance. Sometimes it can also be with like Nagase to get a hold off of Nagase Fury. Aohi to get holds off of like Phantom Whiplash. Usually it's basically just like a sleep support. And then you got, if you don't have synergy, you can also have Hypno. It heals with Rejuvenate, so it's a little bit bulky and can do some stuff. Gamma Burst is like the highest damage move, like one hold move in the game, tied with Major Slash, but this one exhausts for 2 turns. And you can really get value out of the exhaust due to that speed. You could put more special attack in and go more Glass Cannon-y because you have so much speed and you're not expecting to get hit because you're hoping to outspeed. I don't know. Pocus really doesn't specialize in anything outside of slowdown. So it's hard to like even think of what it does. It doesn't have like coverage options or like fun stuff it can do. It's kind of got the press, or if your opponent's already asleep, it can deal damage still. Denigrate does not heal you with Rejuvenate. They decided that was a thing, so bulky Pocus, it doesn't exist anymore. Beef Up, you could technically run if you want to buff up the attack of an ally, but for the most part, probably don't want to be doing that. I don't know. You guys can kind of try and make Pocus work. I wouldn't recommend it running it just because it kind of struggles to find a role on almost any team. The only other like fun thing you can do with it is if you're playing it with a hallucination tem, hallucination applies 2 statuses, so you can actually constantly sleep lock somebody by pushing off the alert with hallucination and then slowing them down or hypnoing them repeatedly. So something like Aohi in Mix, remember when I said Mix gets hallucinate? That's like the one use case for it, is when pairing it with a Pocus for slowdown hallucination shenanigans. But of course, that's only in like a 1v1 situation. You'd need to kill everything except that one tem. But I used to run a team that did that, and it won me a lot of end games, especially against stall teams. All right, last one for today is Golzi. So this is a bit of a bulkier Golzi spread than most people would probably recommend. This should let you survive like any turn 1 hit. I think this is like a Chimerian Crystal Plume Gatling. It's also enough, it's my favorite speed breakpoint, 273, and then fill attack. The moveset's pretty standard. There's not a whole lot of like flexible options. I wouldn't really recommend running like Sparkling Bullet or Wrenching Massage, Defibrillate. You could run Charged Iron Filings instead of like Show Off, or Rage instead of Show Off if you want to be like real risky. But I think this is your most consistent build. Do not run Savage Suplex. Please don't. It's bad. It's bad on Golzi, at least. Don't run Psychosis either. You would rather click Show Off and then Oshidashi something than click Psychosis. And you can do that turn 1 and 2, not turn 3 at low prio. As far as like trait goes, you can definitely run either with this build. Voltaic Charge is probably more fun and what most of you will tend to go for. That's totally okay. I prefer Diffuser because a lot of items are very high value, especially like when you think of things like Sweatband or like Reactive Vial here. Like if you use Diffuser Golzi on this Cyrox, the Reactive Vial won't proc and you'll be able to kill it with a second electric move. And like Piraniant won't heal with First Aid Kit. Just looking at stuff I've got here, could actually matter. Like I said earlier, Saipat would lose Schween's Horn and lose its best damage option. So it does have a lot of use cases, and so that's why I prefer it. But you know, you will always get value with Voltaic Charge unless you get one shot. But you shouldn't. But for the most part, you're going to want to pair it with Nature Allies for Hasty Lunge synergy, because you only get Prio with Hasty Lunge. I do have Taser set as the item for burns, because priority burns are super valuable, especially when you're dealing good damage while doing them. Oshidashi is just your main damage option. Uppercuts, just so you have a melee move turn 1. A lot of people will bring their Earths and Crystals into Golzi turn 1. Not all of them will have a turn 1 option. Like my roller from yesterday. But most of them probably will. But it's basically just to hit anything that's not an electric resist. Because electric is resisted by, I think it's like 4 types. Yeah, it's resisted by nature, it's like electric, crystal, and earth. And Golzi wants to hit crystals and earths with a melee move. Like Golzi is really weird, where pretty much all of its weaknesses it can hit for 2x damage. I think it's actually all of them, because you're weak to mental and digital. You can kill those two with electric, and electric is weak to earth and crystal, and you can kill those with melee. So it's a super interesting tem that way. This speed break point also allows you to outspeed digitems like Chromion and Munko and Zalbian. That's kind of why you definitely want to at least run some speed on your Golzi. Let's see what else. Yeah, I mean that's kind of it. I think that's all I got today. I left one out just because the next time in line I think I'm gonna need 2 builds for. I forget what it was already, but it was something goofy. So we'll probably start off with a double build next time. I'm hoping to put another one out tomorrow. Keep these coming out until I'm done. Once I get all the builds done, I'm hoping to make like 1 or 2 solid, consistent teams and then do some PvP matches with them. Give you guys an idea of that. Don't think I'm going to actually run through the Dojo rematches with the teams, just because I don't have them made in pro squad, and that would take significantly more time than even it takes to make all these builds and do this video. But I can at least advise you guys, and PvP matches are going to just be a harder version of the Dojo rematches anyways. And I can, as I do those PvP videos, hopefully I'll explain. But that's all in the future. Stay tuned. If you appreciate the guides, I would appreciate if you let me know through like likes or comments, just to know that, you know, I'm doing something that's valuable to you guys, because these do take a lot of time. So thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.